Christmas Eve miracle. A billionaire's heart shatters after meeting this homeless woman. The snow fell like delicate whispers, blanketing the bustling city in a nostalgic hush, as the lights glimmered like stars against the night sky. There, amidst the twinkling decorations, a haunting story was about to unfold. A billionaire, known for his ruthless business moves and icy demeanor, was about to encounter something that would shatter every illusion he held. Little did he know, his crisp, clean world was about to collide with the gritty reality of a homeless woman lying beneath the flickering streetlight, her breath curling like fog in the frigid air. The moment was surreal. She had long, tangled hair, matted like a lion's mane, framing a face that told tales of pain and resilience. Her eyes sparkled with a fierce light that contradicted her worn-out clothing. They seemed to hold secrets, whispers of triumphs and tragedies. As he walked past, a chill overtook him, tightening his chest. She caught his gaze, and in that instant, a bolt of electricity sparked between them. Could he feel compassion? Or was it just a fleeting moment of curiosity amidst the festive chaos? The crowd flowed around them, laughter and joy enveloping the air. Yet, in that moment, time stopped. The laughter faded into a dull echo, replaced by the frantic rhythm of his heartbeat. As he took a hesitant step forward, the throwaway coin in his pocket felt heavy, as if the weight of the world rested upon him. Why was he drawn to her? Why did the sight of her patched-up blanket feel like a mirror reflecting his own empty life? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The billionaire stood frozen, wrestling with a surge of guilt and sympathy. Around him, people were passing, engrossed in their own blissful distractions, unaware of the stark reality before them. Hey! You! A voice broke through the silence, a passerby pointing at him. You gonna just stand there? Give her something. The tension crackled in the air. Every eye turned toward him, waiting. A lump formed in his throat as the moment stretched into eternity. What if he turned away? He could, and leave her to the mercy of the freezing night, or he could change the course of their lives forever. His hands trembled. After what felt like a lifetime, he reached into his pocket and pulled out that coin, a glimmer of something deeper sparking in his chest. This wasn't just a transaction. It was a choice. But as he crouched down, the woman's gaze held him captive. You see me, don't you? She whispered, her breath warm against the winter chill. Suddenly, all his wealth, his success, felt meaningless like a house of cards waiting to topple. There was a loud shout in the distance, interrupting their moment. Look out! A commotion broke loose. His heart raced. What was happening? The crowd shifted like a wave, and he barely registered it when she gripped his hand tightly, her nails digging into his skin. Help me! She pleaded, fear lacing her tone. As chaos erupted around them, he had a decision to make. Would he pull away, retreat into his lonely fortress of cash and privilege, or plunge headfirst into this whirlwind of uncertainty, facing whatever danger lay ahead? And as he looked into her eyes, shining with a mix of desperation and hope, one undeniable truth appeared: this Christmas Eve would change everything. What lay ahead was shrouded in shadows, and the path forward was filled with unknowns. Would he dare to take that first step? The billionaire's fingers entwined with hers, but his mind raced, battling between instinct and an unfamiliar pull toward the woman's plight. The distant shouts morphed into a cacophony, a sudden tempest of fear and urgency. He could sense a tide of energy surging through the crowd, panic igniting flames of chaos. They were running, careening away from something, but what? Stay close, he managed to utter, his voice barely piercing through the surrounding noise. Her grip tightened, an anchor drawing him deeper into a storm he never signed up for. The world around them blurred, colors swirling into a dizzying spiral of reds and greens under the sparkling lights. Yet, amidst the frantic escape, her gaze locked on his, as if she was the eye of the hurricane, calm and defiant that he forced himself to look around, heart hammering against his ribcage. Recognizing the chaos, he saw shadows moving, figures darting through the snow-covered streets, brandishing something. It was hard to get a clear picture through the flurry of activity. Fear tore at him, slicing through the icy facade he'd built around himself for years. Was this a mugging? A riot? The city pulsed with anxiety, shifting under the weight of uncertainty. "Don't let go!" she yelled, her voice rising above the din. Suddenly, the crowd surged toward him, a wave of flailing limbs and startled faces. He felt her breath hitch beside him, and panic ignited in his chest. Time slowed as he surveyed the scene, assessing their escape route. The world had become unpredictable, and he didn't know if he had the strength to shield her. The luxurious life he'd known felt like an alien existence now. With a deep breath, he called on instincts buried beneath layers of wealth and privilege. "This way," he urged, yanking her toward a narrow alleyway, shadows beckoning them like dark guardians. The urgency thrummed in his veins, pushing him forward as they squeezed past towering buildings that loomed over them like ancient sentinels. They ducked into the alley, the sound of chaos fading slightly but not entirely disappearing. He turned to face her, catching his breath. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though her wide eyes betrayed the fear coiling around her heart. I just need to breathe." There was something vulnerable in her admission, a raw truth that struck him like a hammer to glass. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling lost and desperate to protect the fragile moment they shared. He barely knew her name, yet she felt like a lifeline. "Why were they running?" he asked, still scanning the alley for any sign of danger. "I don't know. They're looking for someone." Her voice trembled slightly, but there was a flicker of resolve within her. "But they don't have to find us. We're safe here. Safe in the folds of uncertainty." He let that sink in, grappling with a rush of clarity. This Christmas Eve had become more than just a turning point, it was becoming a revelation. The weight of loneliness and arrogance began to peel away, revealing the raw need for connection, but then, another shout echoed through the alley, a command barked with urgency, "There they are." A chill gripped him, ice spreading through his veins. The moment shattered. Would they be found? He had to decide how far he would go, how much he was willing to risk for a stranger whose heart was filled with hope but whose life was shadowed by hardship. "Are you ready?" he asked, uncertainty thick in the air, looking deep into her eyes, those fierce, fiery eyes that beckoned with either danger or salvation. "What do you mean?" she replied, brows furrowing. "Whatever happens next, we face it together. No looking back." The silence hung between them like a promise. But before she could answer, another wave of footsteps echoed, drawing closer. The storm wasn't over yet, and the unknown lurked just beyond the corner. Their fates intertwined in that flickering moment, and the abyss of choice loomed larger than ever. As he took a step back, preparing to plunge them into whatever awaited, a sharp realization hit him: this was more than just a chance encounter. This was the moment that would decide everything. Would he be brave enough to leap, or would fear chain him to the past? What awaited them on the other side of that alley? The echoing footsteps grew louder, thrumming in his chest like a war drum. Adrenaline spiked through him, heating his blood in a way he had never experienced before. He glanced back down the alley, the darkness curling like smoke, hiding whatever pursuit lay behind. Their moment of peace was slipping, and he could feel the weight of the choice pressing against him. "Listen," he said, voice tight with urgency. "Follow my lead. We need to keep moving." She nodded, her determination brightening the uncertainty surrounding them. Together, they slipped further into the shadows. The air was thick with tension, and each breath felt like a silent prayer. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I'm not letting anything happen to you," he swore. A part of him felt foolish for making such a vow, knowing little of her, but there it was a solid promise forged in fear. They hurried along the narrow pathway, gliding past dumpsters and remnants of forgotten city lives. But with each new corner, a sense of dread coiled tighter. They were trapped in an unseen labyrinth, each twist morphing into a promise of newfound danger. Suddenly, a sharp cry cut through the air, slicing away at the heavy silence. "They went this way!" a voice shouted. The shout was filled with a manic edge, a signal of imminent violence. Just moments before, he had thought they were hidden in the cloak of night. Now, that cover felt thin, almost laughable. Panic surged again. "Over here!" he barked, grabbing her hand. They darted between two buildings, their bodies pressed against the cold, unforgiving brick. It was cramped, the world outside shrinking down to the rhythm of their combined breaths, quickening, shallow, electric with the surge of survival. "What do we do?" she whispered urgently, eyes darting as she clutched his arm. He could see the fear creeping into her expression, wild and raw. "We can't stay here." He could feel the weight of the moment hovering above them, heavy with possibility and dread. They needed a plan, but his mind raced through scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. Every possible action felt like a gamble, a leap into the unknown. "Look, we have to wait for the right moment," he told her, trying to sound composed, even as his heart thudded loudly against his ribs. When they passed before he could finish, a heavy footfall reverberated in the alley, and his throat closed tight. He strained to listen, the hushed voices filtering through the darkness, fragments of words filled with anger, with an unmistakable threat. His body tensed, he didn't like the corners they had turned. "What if they don't just pass us?" she said, voice thrilling with fear. "We'll take the risk," he replied, squeezing her hand. "Stay ready to run." It felt like an eternity, seconds stretching painfully in the dark silence, until at last, the voices faded into the distance. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Now!" he commanded, pulling her into a sprint. They dashed toward the end of the alley, desperation fueling their stride. The street opened up before them, illuminated by the vibrant glow of holiday lights, but it became more surreal with every step. Crowds that had once seemed inviting now felt treacherous. Celebrating families, blissfully unaware of the madness unfolding just moments away, strolled merrily, wrapped in joy and laughter. "Where do we go?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. But before he could answer, a shadow passed in front of them, a figure obscured against the bright backdrop of lights. His heart lurched as he recognized the fleeting silhouette. It was one of the pursuers. They needed to move. Fast, without thinking, he pulled her toward a nearby cafe, its glass doors fogged but glowing warmly, a refuge amidst the chaos. As they stepped inside, the clamor of the outside world dimmed, replaced by cozy chatter and the rich aroma of coffee. But safety was a mirage, the threat remained real, lurking just outside. That he looked at her, and in that moment, beneath the bright decorations and bustling holiday spirit, they both understood that their fledgling bond had forged amidst danger. Whatever darkness shadowed them outside, they had to face it together. But just then, the cafe door swung open with a bang, and the ominous figure stepped inside, scanning the room. Could they escape the storm closing in on them before it was too late? The moment the door swung open, a rush of cold air cut through the cafe. He froze, instinctively pulling her behind a column, hoping the thick shadows would hide them. The figure remained still, silhouetted against the glow of the street outside. Ice-cold fear gripped his chest as he tried to assess the threat. The men outside had the upper hand. They were trained, determined, and driven by something darker than mere chase. He could feel the tension radiating off of her, their shared panic creating an unbreakable bond yet again. "Where is he?" the figure barked, his voice razor-sharp, slicing through the chatter of unaware patrons. "I know he came in here." His heart raced. The urgency to protect her pulsed like a drumbeat in his veins. He edged closer to her, lowering his voice to a harsh whisper. "We can't stay here. They'll find us," he said, staring at the disguised figure that was starting to pace the cafe floor. We need an exit. She looked around, eyes darting towards the back of the cafe. It was crowded, but maybe if they could just slip away unnoticed, they could escape. The sudden idea hung in the air between them, electrifying both of them with a desperate hope. Follow my lead, he whispered again, feeling the weight of their situation pull heavy on his shoulders. Just then, the figure's head snapped in their direction, catching a flicker of movement. The haunting gaze narrowed, instantly focused. You! He shouted, pointing directly at him, voice laced with accusation. Let her go. Panic surged anew, tearing at him. Adrenaline kicked in again, wild and fierce. Run! He commanded. He grabbed her hand, and they bolted through the narrow gap between tables, knocking over chairs in their wake. Get back here! The pursuer's voice boomed, rising above the startled gasps of the patrons. They burst through the back door, the frigid night air hitting them. The sound of chaos followed them, a stark contrast to the now quiet cafe behind. They stumbled into a side street, the festive decorations behind them fading into darkness. The alley! He shouted, off to their right, already turning that way. It's our only chance. They sprinted forward, adrenaline fueling every frantic step. The backdrop of holiday lights that had seemed so cheerful just moments ago morphed into a tunnel of dread. The echo of their footsteps screamed behind them, a taunting reminder of the menacing presence closing in. Do you think they're going to catch us? She gasped, her breath coming in ragged bursts, desperation creeping into her voice. Her question echoed in his head, a haunting melody he didn't want to confront. Keep moving. He urged, pushing harder, every pulse of fear screaming they could still make it. As they navigated through twisting back streets, the sounds of shouting faded into the distance, but he knew it wasn't over. They hadn't escaped yet. Just as relief started to seep in, he felt an intense pain shoot through his side as he stumbled, colliding against a brick wall. He gasped, breathless, and she spun around, a flicker of panic flashing across her features. Are you okay? She asked, her genuine concern cutting through the noise of the world around them. I'm fine. Just need a second, he replied, forcing the words out as he examined their surroundings. Heavy shadows loomed, oppressive and heavy. Suddenly, a sharp crack of footsteps drew closer. He pulled her down into the debris-laden alley, hiding behind a worn dumpster, hoping it would shield them from whatever approached. His heart thundered, each beat a countdown to the inevitable confrontation that still loomed. Where do they go? A voice filtered through, low and menacing. He held his breath, watching as a pair of boots appeared in the glow of a street lamp. The figure was hunting them like prey, and the hunter was closing in fast. We have to move, he whispered urgently, and her wide, terrified eyes met his, igniting a fierce determination within him. But before they could make a sound, the figure in the street turned, revealing a face he didn't expect at all. It was someone he knew, or thought he did. Could this secret connection change the course of their escape, or would it seal their fate? He blinked, shock washing over him like a cold wave. The face before him, illuminated by the flickering street lamp, sent chills down his spine. Matt Donovan, a childhood friend, someone he thought lost in the winds of time. The same boy he'd shared secrets with, now standing here, turned into a hunting beast. Matt, he breathed, instinct pulling tight around his throat, the steady thrum of fear numbed his senses, and he felt her grip tighten on his arm behind the dumpster. You know him? She whispered, her voice quaking. I used to. A long time ago. His mind raced with questions. What had happened to Matt? Why was he hunting them? Suddenly, Matt's head tilted, and he scanned the alley, his posture tense. I know you're in here. He shouted, voice laced with a dark urgency. You think you can run from this? You're making a mistake coming back. He felt her shiver beside him, her breath hitching in fear. He sounds different, she said quietly. Matt's tone turned fiercer, sharper. You don't get it. They won't stop looking for you. You're not safe here. A creeping worry washed over him, mixing with the dread pooling in his gut. Why was Matt so frantic? Had he been swept up in something dangerous? Was there more to this than he understood? We should go. She pulled slightly, urgency lacing her words. Wait, he hissed, trying to assess Matt's posture, searching for traces of the friend he shared laughter with. Did the years twist him this much? Or had time revealed a predator lurking beneath? Come out, or I'll drag you out. Matt's voice boomed again, breaking through his thoughts. They don't care who they hurt. I'm trying to help you. The desperation in his voice hung in the air, fragile yet powerful. You can't trust him. She whispered fiercely. He's with them. She's right, Matt said sharply, a glimmer of hurt crossing his features. I'm not hunting you. I'm trying to warn you. They're dangerous. He felt the pulse of tension spiraling around them, the decision pulsing like a weight within him. Should he trust his instinct, or the ghost of childhood friendship? Who is they? He asked, his voice low, trying to bring clarity to the chaos of emotions swelling around them. A flash of vulnerability crossed Matt's face for a brief second, but it vanished quickly, replaced by steely resolve. If you can't trust me, then you won't survive the night. Just, listen to me, please. What's your plan? He shot back, voice tight. How do we know this isn't a trap? You don't, Matt admitted, the edge in his voice wavering slightly. But I'd rather take my chances with you than those men. Come on. He felt a surge of competing impulses: fear, confusion, trust, but the sound of footsteps echoed sharply down the alley, closer now, growing louder, rushing toward them like a storm. The time to decide was slipping away. Go with him, she urged, her eyes darting in panic. We can't stay here. Heart racing, he felt the pull of loyalty and fear intertwine within him, a maddening spiral. What if he's right? He thought, as Matt beckoned from the exit. Now! Matt shouted, his voice a raw command cutting through the rush of uncertainty. And in that moment of decision, he realized he could lose everything: his past, his future, her. Anxiety tightened its grip, pumping adrenaline through his veins. He made a choice. Okay, he finally replied, choking out the words he hoped wouldn't seal their fate. As they emerged from the shadows, the dingy streets of the city greeted them, the drab colors fading behind the flickering glow of urgency. But before they could take a solid breath of relief, an echo of footsteps stopped them cold. You didn't think it would be that easy, did you? The voice was chilling, sneering. And as they turned to face the looming threat, he knew one thing for sure: nothing could prepare them for what lay ahead. Would they escape this night, or become pawns in a deadly game they didn't fully understand? The stench of damp concrete mixed with the scent of fear as they faced the figure emerging from the shadows. Heart racing, he squinted into the dim light, trying to make sense of the confrontation unfolding around them. The man standing before them wore a long overcoat, his face obscured by the brim of a worn-out hat. Who are you? He demanded, his voice low and shaky, filled with defiance that masked his terror. You'll wish you hadn't run when you see what they'll do, the stranger replied, a cruel grin curling his lips. You think you can just waltz back into town like nothing happened? You're in over your head, kid. Matt stepped forward, shielding him and her. Get out of the way, Thomas. You don't know what you're messing with. Thomas? The man laughed, a chilling sound that echoed off the alley walls. You're protecting them? The girl and the ghost of your past? You truly have lost it. Let us move. Matt urged, his urgency increasing. The footsteps they had heard before were now converging closer, a chorus of shadowy figures inching forward. He felt her hand clamp onto his wrist, panic radiating through her skin. What do we do? She whimpered, eyes darting left and right. Matt's voice was intense, evocative. Trust me. We have to get to the old warehouse down by the docks. That's our best shot. Without waiting for a response, Matt turned, grabbing his arm and tugging him down the alley. He stumbled, the sense of déjà vu overwhelming him, running from danger with a friend that had his back. They dashed through the murky gloom, hearts pounding like war drums. Behind them, Thomas's mocking laughter faded, replaced by the pounding of numerous footsteps growing louder. Whoever was hunting them wasn't too far behind. Faster. Stick close. Matt urged, glancing over his shoulder. The air grew thicker, wrapping them in an invisible cocoon of dread, but they kept moving, fueled by adrenaline. Each hurried step took them farther from the alley, deeper into the underbelly of the city, where dark secrets thrived. He risked a glance at her, their eyes locking, fear mingling with a hint of something unspoken. "Just follow me," he whispered, though anxiety gripped his throat. The truth of the matter hung above them like a storm cloud. They were not just running from Thomas, they were being hunted by something far worse. The city was alive with shadows, unfamiliar yet eerily comforting, but each turn felt like a trap waiting to spring. And when they reached the old warehouse, its rusted gates creaking open, he hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, doubt creeping in. "Do we have a choice?" Matt replied, breathless, urging them inside. With no other options, they stepped into the darkness. The stale smell of disuse hit them hard, but they pressed further in, hoping for safety. Flickers of anxiety pulsed through him, each sound echoing too loudly, each rustle hinting at lurking predators. The heavy door slammed shut behind them, sealing them into the abyss. They huddled together, hearts pounding, the shadows stretching like fingers reaching out to ensnare them. "Now what?" she whispered, voice trembling as they sank into uneasy silence. Matt leaned against a cold wall, eyes scanning the dark corners. "We hide and we wait." But waiting felt like an unendurable punishment. What if they didn't come? What if this truly was a trap? Then, a sudden crash resonated, splinters of wood flying as the door burst open once more. Footfalls echoed like a countdown, and the trio braced themselves. As the darkness closed in, would they find a way to kindle hope, or would the night snuff out their chance at survival? The air turned electric as footsteps thundered into the warehouse, each echoing heartbeat marked by the scuff of boots against the gritty concrete. Matt's breath caught, anxiety clawing at his throat as he peered from behind a rusted pillar. He could see silhouettes skimming through the shadows, searching, seeking. The chill crept under his skin, a whisper running down his spine that they were not alone. "Matt," she breathed, her voice barely a thread in the heavy silence. Her grip tightened around his arm, skin soft yet tremoring with fear. He turned slightly to reassure her, but his heart raced too fast to give her any comfort. What if it was Thomas who found them? Or worse? "Keep quiet," he hissed, even as self-doubt gnawed at him. Hiding felt like sealing their fate. The shadows played tricks, twisting and stretching until they could leap out and shatter them like glass. Suddenly, voices sliced through the thick air, coarse and menacing. One of the figures spoke, raspy and low. "We know you're in here. You can't escape." There was a pause, then laughter followed, chilling and mockingly echoing in the expansive area. It wasn't just Thomas, it was a small army. They were outnumbered. Matt fought to steady his breath, mind racing with options. "What do we do?" he asked urgently, leaning closer to her. Maybe we can find another exit," she whispered, scanning the dark corners, her eyes wide with uncertainty. The hope in her voice broke against raw fear, a painful reminder of their situation. "No," he replied, a resolve forming in his chest. "We have to hold our ground." He could only pray they wouldn't be found. The sounds of footsteps continued to stomp, circling like vultures. He could sense the tension rising, the heavy anticipation of a storm. Thuds and bangs echoed and then silence fell, a predatory stillness enveloping them. A loud crash shattered the eerie quiet, the sound of metal smashing against the concrete. "This way!" someone shouted, followed by more laughter filling the room. Her eyes gleamed with terror. "Matt, they're getting closer." He whipped around to see figures gathering, tracing the fringes of the shadows spilling across the warehouse floor. Out of the corner of his eye, two of them broke away and came straight toward their hiding spot. Heart pounding, sweat dripping, Matt motioned for them to stay low, desperately searching for a gap, a chance, anything. That a sudden flickering light broke through the shadows, revealing a hidden doorway at the far end of the warehouse. Hope pierced through the dread there. He murmured, pointing toward it. "Can we make it?" she asked, glancing at the figures closing in on their position. "We have to try," he answered, adrenaline pushing him forward. When the first figure turned, broken shards of light bounced off his coat, illuminating the glint of something metallic tucked into his waistband. A weapon? The sight fueled Matt's resolve. As the shadows shifted closer, he gently pulled her toward the door, urging them to move. They raced toward their only chance, but the sound of shoes slapping against the ground quickened behind them, gaining on them with the ferocity of a storm. "Run!" he screamed as they charged for the doorway. With every ounce of strength, they propelled themselves forward, hearts pounding furiously, desperation fueling them. Just as they neared the threshold, Matt felt a piercing pain in his side, something sharp grazing against him. He glanced back to see chaos erupting, the shadows morphing into a dangerous swath of violence. "Go!" he shouted at her, shoving her through the doorway. Then darkness exploded around him, a deafening silence as shadows enveloped him like smoke, strong hands reaching out. Would this be the end, or would hope find a way to ignite even in the darkest corners of despair? The world spun into a blur of sound and darkness, the muffled chaos echoing just out of reach. Matt fought against the creeping despair as he felt cold hands grip his shoulders, dragging him back into the crushing night. Panic set in like a vice, the sharpness of fear slicing through his senses. He kicked and struggled, desperate to break free. "Hold him down!" a voice barked, rough and harsh, cutting through the chaos like a knife. "Get your hands off me!" he snarled, twisting violently as he tried to shake free. He could barely see them, but their presence was heavy, looming in the inky blackness. Adrenaline surged through him, igniting every nerve ending, pushing him to fight harder, but he was outnumbered. Two figures pinned him to the ground, wrestling his arms behind his back. The cold tide of defeat threatened to wash over him. In that instant, he thought of her, of the fleeting moment they had just shared before darkness engulfed him. Would she be safe? Where's the girl? A voice snarled, primal and menacing. I don't know. Panic twisted in his stomach. Had they taken her? His breaths came in short gasps as he struggled against their grip. "You'll never find her." Thuds echoed through the warehouse, and then laughter rang out sudden and chilling. "Oh, we won't need to. We'll make you tell us." The threat hung in the air, thick and suffocating. One of the men leaned close, his breath hot against Matt's ear. "You think you're strong? We'll see how strong you are when we start breaking your bones." Panic swelled again, this time pounding against his ribcage, an animalistic roar that threatened to escape. He could hear faint scuffling, muffled sounds from somewhere behind the figures looming over him. Where was she? Was she hiding, or worse, captured too? "Get him up," the voice commanded. "We're going for a little walk." Before he could protest, they yanked him to his feet, dragging him through the darkness. Matt's heart raced, thinking of the door, the fleeting chance of escape. No. He had to fight. He couldn't be their puppet. Matt dug his heels into the concrete, twisting in their grip. The world around them dimmed, shadows intertwining as he clawed for freedom. "Let me go!" he shouted, his voice raw with urgency. "Shut him up!" Another growl of frustration echoed from the back. Hands clamped around his mouth, squeezing until he thought his teeth might crack. In the struggle, he caught glimpses of movement, a flicker of light up ahead. Maybe it was the doorway they'd seen before. Hope rekindled for a split second, igniting a flame of defiance within him. "Hey, look!" one of the captors suddenly shouted, pointing toward the door. Light poured through its jagged edges, illuminating a path that seemed to beckon them. He's lying about her. She's not here. Matt shouted, desperate to distract them, but it was too late. Just as they turned, another figure emerged and silhouette shadows danced in the doorway. Matt! A voice called out, sweet and desperate. It was her. His heart leaped as she rushed toward him, eyes wide, desperate for safety. Get away! He screamed as he struggled against their hold. The figures lost focus, drawn in by her presence. Matt! She cried, but Matt was losing his grip on reality. A deafening roar drowned out his thoughts. Stop them! Run! He shouted, pulling in a breath to scream again, but the world darkened as warm, strong hands pushed against him. What if it was too late? Would she find a way to escape, or would they both be swallowed by the shadows? A flicker of hope remained, but the impending doom lurked just beyond the edge of the light. The world fell silent, all noise swallowed by the mounting tension. In an instant, Matt's surroundings became nothing but a pulsing blur, with only the sharp edges of reality grazing his consciousness. Hands still clamped around his mouth, he felt the heat of the urgent situation press against him like a weight, and his heart raced, each beat drumming louder in his ears that he wanted to scream for her, to tell her to run. Disbelief clawed at his insides as the figures above him pushed him forward, their grip unyielding. The gateway ahead shimmered, a sliver of salvation amidst the shadows of doom. Let me go, please, he strained against the hold, the desperation in his voice catching on the remnants of hope. He needed to reach her. Shut up! The voice hissed closer than before. A heavy fist struck down on his shoulder, pulling him up short as pain lanced through him. He couldn't give in. He tried to twist free, catching sight of her again, her face framed by the light, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Don't come closer! He yelled, hoping to shield her from whatever nightmare was about to unfold, but the creatures of darkness only laughed, pulling him backward, as if they fed off fear and chaos. They recoiled slightly, caught off guard by the spark of light she brought into the bleak warehouse. The glee, however, dipped into something colder, sharper. Grab her! One of them shouted, the world around him snapped into focus. Matt's heart thudded painfully, he had to act. He surged forward, desperate. The captors had not yet entirely registered her presence. If he could just push past them, get to her, with a raw burst of strength, Matt knelt and threw his shoulder into one of the figures, knocking him aside. The other one stumbled back, allowing him a precious moment to turn around. Run! He cried, voice hoarse, as panic coiled tight around his throat. Matt! She cried, fear lacing her voice. The light surrounding her dimmed as the men gathered themselves like vultures. She hesitated, torn between safety and loyalty, glance darting between Matt and her escape route. Every second felt eternal. No! He shouted, desperation clawing at him. Go! She took a step back, finally turning to bolt towards the exit, but before she could make it 2 paces, a hand shot out from the shadows and grabbed her wrist. Got her! One of Matt's captors shouted. No! With a guttural roar, Matt surged forward, shoving through the darkness, adrenaline working against every ounce of fear coursing through him. He felt bone and muscle move beneath him like jagged glass as he fought. Let her go! Laughter erupted, cruel and triumphant. The figure holding her yanked her back, forcing Matt to witness the fear etched on her face, the connection severing between them like a thin thread pulled too hard. No! Matt screamed, grounding his feet, but it was as if the earth was crumbling beneath him. He had done all he could, and it still hadn't been enough. Despair deflated what little hope remained, a crushing tide that threatened to take him with it, but then, a moment of clarity broke through. In the dim abyss of the warehouse, a flicker emerged, catching the corner of his eye, a glint of something metallic hidden beneath a pile of debris nearby. Matt's gaze narrowed on what looked like a pipe, something sharp and heavy. Was this the opportunity he was waiting for? His heart pounded in hope and desperation, splintering every second taken by the sinister laughter echoing through the walls. Let her go, he growled, the words barely a whisper, but his resolve seeping into the air like poison. The world snapped back into chaotic sound, each beat of time propelling him forward. Would he reach that glimmer of hope before it was too late? As he lunged toward the pipe, a firm hand clamped around his forearm, pulling him backward as the shadows tightened around them. The struggle had just begun, and time was running out. Would this be the fight that reclaimed their freedom, or was it all for nothing? The world around Matt darkened, the cacophony of laughter and chaos threatening to drown him. The weight of despair pressed down like an anchor, but the glimmer of that pipe sparked a flicker of determination. With a frenzied twist, he broke free from the grip of his captor, adrenaline surging as he reached for the shimmering hope hidden beneath the debris. Let her go. He shouted, his voice raw with desperation, forcing the words past the fear constricting his throat. He could see her now, eyes wide, fear etched across her face, the specter of danger closing around her like a noose. In that moment, she was both his beacon and his tether, pulling him from the edge of hopelessness. Stop! Came a voice from the shadows, cold and commanding, snapping his focus. The ringleader emerged, a smirk plastered across his face, malicious satisfaction flickering behind his eyes. You think you can save her? You're just a scared little boy. Matt felt the rage surging within him, each heartbeat pounding like a war drum. You don't own her. He growled, reaching for the pipe and gripping it tightly. The cool metal reassured him, transforming the fear into resolve. He dashed toward her, determination fueling each stride, the desire to protect her overwhelming. In that split second, they locked eyes. It was a quiet promise, a promise that he would not let her go without a fight. Get away from her! He bellowed, brandishing the pipe. The shocked expressions on the captors' faces fueled his courage. In a sudden rush, the first assailant lunged at him, but Matt swung the pipe with every ounce of force, striking heavy against his adversary's torso. A shocked gasp filled the air as the man fell back, leaving the path wide open. Run! He shouted, motioning urgently to her, with fear still tangling in her chest. She bolted toward him. Her feet moved fast, weaving through the looming shadows, but not fast enough. The captor who had held her snatched for her wrist again, pulling her backward. No! Matt cried, his voice raw, filled with everything he felt in that moment: anger, desperation, and a fierce desire to protect. With a quick motion, he stepped forward, pipe raised, and swung with all his might, connecting solidly with the captor's head. The man crumpled, releasing her instantly. She stumbled into Matt's arms, gasping. Matt! She exclaimed, horror painting her features as they both turned to see the remaining figures advancing toward them, their expressions turning from shock to fury. Go, go, go! He shouted, ushering her toward the exit ahead. They sprinted through the space, shadows colliding with them, but they kept moving, fueled by the urgency of survival. Outside, the icy night air rushed into their lungs like sweet relief. The city still pulsed with life, oblivious to the chaos they had just escaped. But danger still lurked behind them, and time was running short. Where do we go now? She gasped, glancing back, terror still etched across her face. There! He shouted, spotting a small alley that appeared less crowded, an unseen sanctuary amidst the bustling streets. They dashed into the narrow passage, the echo of their feet muffled by the stillness surrounding them. As they pulled into the shadows of the alley, they pressed against the cold brick walls, breaths heavy as they strained to listen. The footfalls of their pursuers echoed, but grew distant, fading into the night. Matt's heart thudded painfully in his chest, reality crashing over him in waves. They had escaped death, for now, at least. He turned to her, searching her eyes for the light he had seen earlier, the fierce strength that had made him step into the unknown. We made it, he breathed, relief washing over him, but it was quickly followed by guilt. I'm so sorry you had to experience this. She reached out, placing a trembling hand against his cheek, grounding him back to the moment, back to her. You saved me, Matt. His gaze softened as he took in the strength of her spirit, the resilience framed by the fear of the world that sought to break her. "We saved each other," he replied, a flicker of admiration welling within him. The air hung between them, thick with unspoken emotions, binding them together in ways they hadn't fathomed. And as they stood there, in the quiet of the city that seemed both daunting and warm, he realized something profound: this night had transformed them. They had stepped into chaos and forged a bond deeper than he had ever known. Their lives were irrevocably intertwined, their struggles, their successes, perhaps simply their existence now sweetly tangled in one another. Time stretched, and the world outside carried on, blissfully unaware of the bonds forged in chaos. He took her hand, holding it tightly, a silent promise sealing their newfound connection. "Whatever happens next," he said gently, "we face it together." As dawn began to light the sky, casting away the darkness of the night, hope flickered like the embers of a newly ignited fire. They stared into the horizon, ready to reclaim their lives, ready to embrace whatever awaited them together, and just then, a question emerged: what would this newfound strength lead them to? Was the world still a daunting place, or were there opportunities blooming amidst the shadows of their past? Amidst the rising sun, no matter what lay ahead, they were no longer alone. If you're moved by this story and want to see more incredible tales unfold, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second. Hit that subscribe button immediately so you won't miss our next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these amazing stories alive. Let me know your reactions and theories about the ending in the comments below. And don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.